I don't want to get to the end of my life and have it judged by the amount of money I have, the amount of possessions that I have. I want to be able to look at it and say, how many lives did I improve? How many people were impacted by the things that I did?
We realize that the way you build community, the way you build relationships and friendships is just be of service to others. Not thinking necessarily about what's in it for ourselves, just be of service.
By and large, the vast majority of people on this earth and in this country, in our communities, are good people. We're living in bad times, which makes it harder to be good.
There's a politics that thinks about a garden that you're building and that it takes time. The gradual work, all that work takes time because you could see the suddenly happen, but you might not be the one that gets to inherit that suddenly, but you're preparing the community who you've been elected to serve for that suddenly. Just wrapped up the conversation with Lorenzo Sierra, author of the new book, Fight Like Hell, where he talks about his history in politics, community, leadership, relationships, but more importantly, he talks about how he dealt with his own mortality and how a whole community and his family rallied around this particular set of moments in his life to uplift him, and how it's changed his perspective on the impact that he wants to not only make today, but leave behind for a much more human-centered future tomorrow. Please enjoy this episode. Welcome back to the Future Human Experience podcast. I am your host, Eric Rodriguez, and today we have a special guest, an author, a friend, a leader in our community here in Arizona, Lorenzo Sierra. Bienvenido. Welcome to the Future Human Experience.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Lorenzo, you have written, well, first off, we've known each other for years.
Yes.
And I feel like every time we bump into each other, you've been like an inspiring person in my life because I feel like you always come up to me and you say, Eric, what are you running for? Are you running for something? And I'm like, either Lorenzo's giving me a sign to do something, or maybe he's been seeing me and doing this work. But first, I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for all of us in the community, for myself, for our families. But also, you've written a wonderful, inspiring book called Fight Like Hell. We'll have links to this on our podcast and our show notes. But Lorenzo, tell us a little bit more. We'll jump straight into this. Why was this book something important for you to write today?
So, I've had these experiences that I just innately knew were outside the normal. I got into politics, and soon after I got sworn into city council in Avondale, my wife got diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer. And so we are going through all of the things of building a political career while we're having this absolutely devastating fight with cancer. And so, my career is progressing in politics. I'm also, doing some consulting work. Yeah. But I'm on MSNBC. I'm being asked to serve on these invite-only type organizations. So the political career is going. And in 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had gone to Washington, D.C. to see our daughter, and we all got COVID there. And I got sicker and sicker to the point to where I had to go to the ER, and they came in and said, we have to put you on a ventilator. And right before that, right seconds before the people came into my hospital room, my wife goes, I need you to promise me something. I need you to promise that you're going to fight like hell to come back to me. My wife was already a widow. And so that I felt I had a heavy burden on me to do whatever I could at a cellular level to come back. And so, while I was in my coma, she was getting calls from people like Senator Mark Kelly, President Biden gave her a call. It was on a lot of radars, just how sick I was. And it also gave me that perspective of people really care. I guess I survived for a reason, and just wanted to tell that story. I believe everyone has a story. Yeah. And I think everyone owes it to themselves to do their own book as well.
Absolutely. And you have inspired not only me, but so many others before the book. But now that we're reading the book, we all recognize that, yes, we all have a story within us to share. With that said, Lorenzo, one of the things that I found really interesting about your story and how this book came into fruition was that you talk about mortality just right there at the door, right? The doorsteps of yourself, of your family. But before you got into this moment, you were already navigating and serving community and serving others. How did this experience, when you had to deal with mortality right there, has that changed how you approach or how you look at community today, or how are you trying to build a community-centered future tomorrow?
So as I was getting ready to go under, I wasn't afraid of the process of dying. I knew that if I was going to die, I was going to fall asleep. I just wasn't going to wake up. It was going to be peaceful and for the most part, painless. I was absolutely petrified of not living. So I understood that we're all going to die. Everybody dies. And that is just one of the natures of humanity. We all die. I knew that as I was getting close to really looking at my mortality, I don't want to get to the end of my life and have it judged by the amount of money I have, the amount of possessions that I have. I want to be able to look at it and say, how many lives did I improve? How many people were impacted by the things that I did? Did people have a better life because of some of the things I did while I was in office? Did people have access to things they wouldn't have had otherwise? So I think, looking at that and understanding that for all intents and purposes, I'm on borrowed time right now. How do I make the most of the time that I have left, and how can I improve as many lives as possible? At the same time, trying to make sure that I'm there for my family, that I'm there for my community, but how much impact can I make in this time that I have?
Wow, that is powerful. And Lorenzo, I feel that today, as again, you're one of those role models that when we came into this community 15 years ago, we didn't know anyone. We didn't know how to navigate Arizona, but we just wanted, to your point, we just wanted to be of service. Like, we realized that the way you build community, the way you build relationships and friendships is just be of service to others. Not thinking necessarily about what's in it for ourselves, just be of service. And it was individuals like yourself, Monica Villalobos, today at Washington Covena, Tomas Leon, so many others, Lisa Urias, right, who are all in Izzy Gonzalez, right, all in these different areas of just being of service. And you're able to connect with folks. And I think as we're building a much more technological future, a much more digital future, we also have an opportunity to be much more human as well and much more empathetic as well. Lorenzo, you've been part of a state that has transformed in the last several decades or so, right? I mean, you grew up in these areas as well. Tell us a little bit more about how do you look at Arizona, about being a blueprint, about what we could build as far as community and human-centered, empathetic world. I mean, it seems like you are one of those role models of leadership as well, but tell us a little bit more about what could people look at, not only your journey, but your journey as someone that's lived in this space and in this state over the last several years, that people could take inspiration for and move as a blueprint on what they could build tomorrow.
So, and thank you for that question, because when I was in the Arizona House of Representatives, I was in the Ways and Means Committee. And in that committee, we got what was called, the R&D tax credit bill. And that bill was going to be the impetus for companies like TSMC. It was going to be the impetus for the Intel expansion. So now we are looking at the largest foreign direct investment in our nation's history with TSMC. But the kickoff to that was getting this R&D tax credit bill over the line. So in the House, in the Ways and Means Committee, the day of that vote, they didn't have the votes because it's a Republican majority, and I believe it was 5 Republicans and 4 Democrats on that particular committee. So they had lost 2 Republican votes. So they needed 2 Democratic votes to pass that. And so I remember myself and Tucson Mayor Regina Romero on the phone at 11 p.m. trying to get that last vote, and we did. So I remember going to Ben Toma, who eventually became Speaker of the House. I said, Ben, you got the votes? And he goes, I don't. He goes, yeah, you do. And so I remember giving my speech after that vote and having saying something along the lines, if you've been here long enough, and I believe you've been here long enough, our biggest economic development wins at the time were call centers. And that's all we had. So I understood at the time this was going to transform Arizona's economy in very profound ways. And as you've seen, with the investment, and it wasn't just TSMC, it wasn't just the Intel expansion, it was the universe of companies they were going to create, and the opportunities that I saw for kids in the K-12 space because I remember at the time, so many of Arizona State graduates were going outside the state to find work commensurate with the education they had received. Now we're going to be able to have those graduates stay in our state and help us grow that state. Wow. So, I will be long gone when the impact of that particular vote is really coming to fruition, and that, Arizona is one of the global leaders in chip development, biosciences. So it's not just a sleepy flyover state anymore. Yes. We are leading the world economy.
Yes. What a small world. And I believe it was on season 4, we had Steven Stilstra in our conversation, and he shared with us about the R&D tax credit from his perspective. I love to hear the story on the votes. Wow, what an amazing behind the scenes.
Yes, it wasn't just the committee. Then we had to get it past the entire body. And so that's when my seatmate, Diego Espinosa, and I went into work and getting the votes that we needed to get that over through the entire House. Now it was part of the reason that I'm no longer in politics. I mean, I remember coming out of the committee meeting, and I had one of my fellow Democratic members come up to me and said, "You just let down every teacher in your district," and that's fine, because there are things that happen in the moment when you're only looking at the moment. I wasn't looking at the moment. I was looking at, how is this going to be impacted once I'm gone? I'll be out of politics. I probably in retirement, but I'll be gone. But the impact of those votes and what we did is going to outlive us many, many years beyond.
Lorenzo, I think what you're sharing with us is that sometimes we get frustrated with getting involved in politics or navigating politics because there's this sense of, I just need to do something to win something tomorrow. And what you're sharing with us is that there's also another type of politics. There's a politics that thinks about a garden that you're building, and that it takes time. The gradual work, all that work takes time because you could see the suddenly happen.
Right.
But you might not be the one that gets to inherit that suddenly, but you're preparing the community who you've been elected to serve for that suddenly.
Right. So there's that line in Hamilton, right when he's just about to lose his life. It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. I may never get to see some of this, in addition to the work that we did with the technology. We also got the greatest investment we've ever had in pre-K in our state's history. So we had $45 million for pre-K. And I remember, so it wasn't just me, but Joanne Osborne also lost her seat, a Republican from the West Valley, Goodyear. She was instrumental in us getting that money for pre-K. And I remember being honored at something afterwards. And I said, Joanne, 18 years from now, there's going to be a kid that's going to open a letter that's going to open a letter and saying that they've been accepted into college, and possibly the first person in their family to be accepted to college. And they will have had the foundation, the educational foundation from being in pre-K that has gone through the course of their educational experience. They'll never know who you and I are.
Yeah.
But we did that.
Yeah.
And no one can ever take that away from us. Wow. They can take our title, but they cannot take our impact away.
They can take our title, but they cannot take our impact. That is powerful, Lorenzo. Can we just take that nugget a little bit more, and then we'll dive back into the story of your book? Why do you think it's difficult today for leaders that are representing some of our communities to have that mindset, Lorenzo? It seems that sometimes we're challenged to kind of like, we're recording this and in a time that it seems that politics are very challenging and very either people are dismissive of it or they get enraged by it. There's no like productivity around it, if I'm not mistaken. So, or how do we change the perception? Maybe there is some productivity behind it, but the headlines are very are very negative around that, right? About how we navigate. What has been either one, your experience on those headlines, but two, what will be your encouragement today as community members that are seeing this divisiveness in our politics?
So, the whole thing is most politicians act in self-interest of staying in office, because you can only do good if you're staying in office, which means you're going to have to compromise here and there. So I remember my last year in office, we put together the first bipartisan budget in more than a generation. Truly bipartisan. This wasn't just one Democrat getting onto the budget. This was a bipartisan budget. And so we had a group of us that met in a boardroom, and it was the Democratic votes that we needed to get the budget over the line. And so again, my seatmate Diego Espinoza, he explained everything. And then I said, yeah, you know what, guys, and this is in the book. This was hard fought. It's not where we want to be, but it's farther than we've ever been. And then I said, but the thing to know is some of us aren't going to come back from this. And sure enough, some of us did not come back from that. But we did the right thing. We got the K-12. We got the first, the largest investment into K-12 in years. We had invested in higher education that hadn't happened in a while. We got the pre-K. We got the poverty weight added into K-12 formula. So we did some really good things, but I understood at the time that some of us weren't coming back. Wow. Didn't think it was going to be me, but yeah. So when you're doing it for the good of the community, the good of the state, the good of the nation, sometimes you're not going to come back. But for me, I knew, hey, if I don't come back, I'm sure the good Lord's going to find something else for me to do and put me in the space that I need to be. And I feel like right now that's where I'm at. And as we talked about before we came on, the last 6 months have been just absolutely mind-blowing in terms of how my life trajectory, my wife and our trajectory has really turned out.
Yes. Lorenzo, one of the things that you remind me of as you're sharing the story about how we could be okay with our titles being taken away, but our impact will never be taken away, is that one of the conversations I have with either young professionals or leaders today is I talk to them about the difference between your job and your work, right? Your job is going to be those titles that come and go and they're going to change on time, but your work is something that's much more deeper than that. It's a little bit messier, but it's okay. It's the things that you care about, the reason why you wake up every day, and the impact you want to make. And it seems that you've not only led like that in your politics, but you've also led like that in your community and with your family, and how you want to bring that message to life today as well.
And I'll take that a step a little bit past work, purpose. What is that purpose? Viktor Frankl writes in The Meaning of Life, many of the people who survived the Holocaust weren't looking at, hey, we're going to be out of here by, this particular date. We're going to be out of here by this particular. It was the people who had this nebulous, I have something to go back to. So, as I write in the book, I had something to come back to. When I first went onto the ventilator during COVID, they told my wife, if he survives, expect for him to be on the ventilator for weeks and in the ICU for months. I was off the ventilator in 4 days and out of the ICU in 11 days, which, and these are world. I was at Johns Hopkins, is where I was. So Johns Hopkins was the leading research institution during COVID. So if I was going to be anywhere, during COVID.
Yes.
It was, Johns Hopkins was the place to be. These are world-class physicians, researchers, scientists. The best they could do is say, miracle.
It's a miracle. Absolutely.
And sometimes miracles happen.
Yes.
And so, I will say that in addition to having world-class medical professionals taking care of me, I had sincere prayer from around the world.
Absolutely.
Literally around the world, people were praying for my survival. And I have to believe that had something to do with the manner in which I recovered.
Lorenzo, I haven't shared this in our podcast, but what you're sharing too is actually something that happened to my parents not too long ago. My dad had a major accident in Ecuador where they were enjoying their retirement, and actually I was recording the podcast that day, and so my phone was on silent. I walk out and I have missed calls from my mom, from my brother, and that's when you know something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I eventually get the message that he's been in an accident, and he was going to require some surgery on his legs. And so I immediately flew out to Ecuador in all of June. I spent time with him while he was navigating some of those challenges with his legs. And I remember during that time, the community in Houston was reaching out to us, right? Because we grew up in Houston. My parents lived there for 40 plus years. And they were all saying, Eric, how can we help? Like, can we do a GoFundMe? Like, let us help. Like, let us please, let's give them some money or something. We said, look, my parents are blessed enough that they have insurance. They're taken care of. Please just prayers will be fine.
Right.
That's okay. And that's what they did. They focused on that. He starts recovering little by little. Eventually, they find out that he can't have a full recovery in Ecuador. And so he flies back to the States to get a second opinion. And as he flies back to the States, and they decide to basically make the States their livelihood for the next year to deal with this medical issue, the community that was giving all those prayers and said, we want to help, they basically said, Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez, the only thing you have to take care of is an apartment. Everything else, we have it for you. We'll take care of the living room. We'll take care of the beds. We'll take care of the cars. We'll take care of everything. And you just need to focus on recovery. And I remember just thinking at that time, I was like, that again, it's a miracle, right? I mean, it's like the community's coming together because they've served them for 40 years to just say, hey, we see you. You're in a time of need. We're there to be of service to you. And I mean, you look back, right? As a son, seeing your parents being taken care of, it gets me emotional today just thinking about that. It's like, because yes, you're worried about the livelihood of your loved ones.
Yes.
But you see someone come together and just being of service, saying, "Hey, I see you, and I want to help." And so and your story reminds me of that as well.
Yeah, and I will say we are good people. By and large, the vast majority of people on this earth and in this country, in our communities, are good people. We're living in bad times, which makes it harder to be good. And it's easier to go along with the flow. It's easier to say, you know what, I am not going to step up even though I see my neighbors under threat. I just have too much to lose.
Yeah.
But again, you could lose your title, you can lose that. And it was Gandhi who said, you can kill me and have my broken body, but you will not have my obedience. We cannot lose the impetus to be good, which is our default, which is where we want to be. And even though the times are dragging us in another direction, we have to maintain that goodness.
Oh my God, wonderful. Oh my God, Lorenzo, we're like 23 minutes in, I'm already crying. So we're gonna pause right here. How are you feeling? You're good?
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like I have one question that I would love to talk about. Remind me again, your lovely wife's name? Rhonda. I know it was an R, but I had my mom in there. Okay, so Rhonda, about the conversation you and Rhonda have, and I'll lead into it for a little bit, but I think there's something there, and then I'll go to the surprise question if that works for you.
Sure, yeah.
And then, is there anything else that you're kind of like, we need to make sure we talk on? I think the conversation's been awesome, by the way.
No, and it's on brand with what.
Okay, yeah, no, I think we're about. Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be back in 3, 2, 1. Lorenzo, one of the things too I think is very powerful about your book is that you bring also Rhonda's story to life in this work, right? Your amazing wife that is not only navigating her health, but also making sure that she's there for you as well with all the strength possible. One of the things that I also found inspiration on that too is that relationship that y'all have about those conversations about dealing with each other's mortality. Share with us a little bit more as someone that's, I mean, I've been married for now 17 years. I'm also trying to always figure out how to be a better husband, a better spouse, a better father. Tell us a little bit more about what did you learn from having those conversations with your wife about dealing with each other's mortality that you would encourage today, either couples that have been married for over a decade or younger couples exploring, what does that mean for relationships today?
So my wife, as I mentioned, was a widow. She saw her husband die from pancreatic cancer. He was diagnosed on one day, and 18 days later, he died. And she saw this just absolutely wonderful man just absolutely lose all of his faculties in a matter of the time. And so when Rhonda was diagnosed, at first it was a low, stage 0, but we later found that it was late stage breast cancer. And at the time, she said, I don't want you to have to go through this with me. I saw what happened when I was with my husband. I don't want that for you. I said, I'm here for the fight. Yeah. You can't get rid of me. And it was the toughest thing I've ever done. I always tell people, you know what? I got my wife through late stage breast cancer. Politics is easy. And so it was in that. And mind you, we're just 5 years into our marriage at the time, and we're still trying to figure it out. And it was then that she realized, okay, he's here for the long haul. He is here. He's probably got more substance than I would have given him credit for. And I'll never do anything harder than that in my life. I even my fight was not as much as that the fight that we had with her cancer. And when you have those battles together, it makes you stronger. And as a couple, we're still trying to figure everything out, and we will for the rest of our lives. I mean, I still do things that drive her nuts, and I try not to, but I can't change who I am that much. But it's just a matter of the respect that you have for each other and the ability to realize when you're in a crisis that we're in this crisis, we're in it together, and we'll get out together.
Yeah. One of the conversations I had with Lorena, probably about maybe 10 years into our marriage, was someone had asked us, like, Eric, do you have a trust? And I was like, well, why do I need a trust for? And they tried to explain some of these things for me. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, my wife and I could take care of that really fast. And we started taking care of it. And we get this questionnaire, which is probably 20 pages of all these questions about what do you recommend you do here and here and there. Lorenzo, we were married 10 years. We had never had those conversations about what would happen if something happens to both of us. What would happen? What would you do? What would you want to do if something happens to all four of us? Or like all these different dynamic questions that challenge us to think about our mortality, that to a certain extent as a couple, we grew because we were vulnerable enough to have those conversations. And like you said, sometimes it requires a crisis to force us to have those conversations and to deal with that reality. And sometimes it's even just not avoiding planning for those crises as well, that I think helped us grow as a couple.
Absolutely.
And that's been one of my encouragements to young couples today as they're exploring, how do they build something together? That's been one of those small little things, small little investments. I say, hey, just put this on the side, but more importantly, have the conversation about how to deal with this and how to navigate with that.
Yeah, and so like Rhonda having gone through what she did with her husband, one of the non-negotiables before we got married is, hey, you're going to have a whole life insurance plan.
Wow.
And I go, I can't afford that. And I couldn't, but she insisted. She goes, you're going to have something to leave behind for the kids. So, and we're going to have something to bury you with, but you're going to have some form of life. Now I've got the life insurance, we've got retirement
Yeah.
things, and it's all of those things that she she endured
Absolutely.
firsthand.
Yeah.
That we're making sure that we're overinsured.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's putting those seeds right in that garden, right? Because this is the legacy
Yes.
that you get to build for the Sierra generation, 2-3 generations from now that started off at these moments.
Yeah.
Lorenzo, with that said, we like to do something really fun with our guests. We ask them to come with a surprise question. Like I said, we've known each other for almost the 15 years that I've been here in Arizona. With that, Lorenzo Sierra, what question do you have for me today?
So one of the things that Rhonda and I just did recently, and I talked about, the last 6 months has been absolutely unexpected.
Sure.
We bought a condo in Puerto Penasco.
Wow. Awesome.
And so we're right off the beach. We're about 95% done,
Beautiful.
Getting it ready. I saw your riff on Puerto Penasco.
Yes.
And so, having bought this, looking, how are we going to look in the future?
Wow.
I'm thinking, okay, desalinization, really tapping into the solar farm they have, improving the roads. Those three things turn Puerto Penasco into what San Diego is right now. Would love to hear your riff on the infrastructure elements of Puerto Penasco.
Oh my God. So that opportunity was a blessing. They were looking for a speaker that could bring the dynamic of Arizona, that's bilingual, and that is very bullish about the future. And I didn't know about this event, and someone said, like, you should talk to Eric Rodriguez. It looks like you're looking for an Eric Rodriguez, and so they found me, and it was a blessing that they took me out there. So I believe you have clips on that on YouTube. So thank you so much for seeing that. And I was very bullish about it because I see Puerto Penasco as an extension of what Arizona could be. Mm-hmm. I think as we think about Arizona as being this blueprint to deal with not only immigration, but imports, exports, economic sharing of resources, I think Puerto Penasco is an example of that too. And I see these collaborations happening in a very thoughtful way, regardless if we're the right or left or independents or what have you. We just care about how do we build something for the future. And again, I think it's that sense of like, there's a garden there that we need to spend and invest in. And we might not be here to see it, but we know it has a potential future. And so when I look at Puerto Penasco and I see all the investment that's happening here, I look at it like it's just 4 hours away from a multi-billion-dollar investment that, like you said, the largest infrastructure investment in the country's history. It's happening 4 hours away from where you just bought a condo. And I think that just shows how collaboration, how economic development can not only just impact one community, but the economic extensions of what that could look like. And so that gets me really excited about the Puerto Penasco. For folks that are not in Arizona, that's Rocky Point. Look it up. We'll link up to it also in our show notes. It's a wonderful little place that, again, in the first few years that we were living here, we knew about it, but we just didn't make a big deal about it. And then now we try to go every year because it's a wonderful extension of what Arizona is today and what it could be tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. With that said, Lorenzo, I want to thank you so much for being here, part of this podcast. How can people find you, connect with you, buy the book as well?
So if you go to lorenzosierra.com, there's a link to buy the book. There's any number of online places where you can buy the book. I would steer people towards the Changing Hands website so that you can buy the book from a local independent retailer. But if you don't know how to do that, it's Barnes & Noble, Amazon. We're on all of those. We're also on ebooks as well. Yes. So if you just go to lorenzosierra.com, you can figure out how to get the book. And thank you for having me today.
Lorenzo, thank you so much for reminding us that it's about the impact that we want to make, that as we build a more human-centered future, it's about how we want to be of service to others. Thank you so much for sharing your story in this book. We'll link up to it on the show notes as well. Lorenzo Sierra, thank you for being part of the Future Human Experience.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I'm inspired to hear that these conversations are resonating within our communities, our organizations, our companies, and our households all around the world. If you found this conversation to be valuable, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share it with someone else. I do believe that as the future gets much more digitized, it gives us an opportunity to be much more human as well. And these conversations are part of that journey. So if you're enjoying the content on this channel, please check out these videos. Thank you.